hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Unlocked Show. I'm your host, Tracy Wilson, and today, boy, you guys are in for a real treat. The reason I say that is because I don't know about you, but as I kind of seem to get a little bit older, the days seem to go a lot quicker. I don't know, Christmas comes around before I know it, and I'm always looking for ways to improve my productivity. I always want to make sure that I'm getting more out of the hour than the regular person. And I don't know about you, but it can be really overwhelming, particularly in this world that we live in right now, where you feel like you always have to be on. There is never a moment of rest. It doesn't matter whether you're picking up your phone, turning on the television. It's kind of like information overload, and it's just go, 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 go world, right? So the guest that I have today, we want to talk about how the heck do you get like an hour's worth of work done in just 30 minutes. And the person that I have found is the amazing Blaine Elkis. Let me tell you a little bit about Blaine. And to let you guys know today, not only are we going to be talking about this, but there's a whole raft of topics that Blaine has. And I've said to him before we started the show, Blaine, do you mind if we kind of delve down and start talking about some of these other things? Because I think they are super important. And like any good host, he's a good guest, he said, absolutely, let's talk about those because they all fit together. Now, Blaine is America's only Chief Results Officer. He's always loved helping people get results, and he knows that building really good habits has actually been the success to his life, and he's able to help other people build in really good success habits into their lives so they too can get consistent results that actually get them to where they want to be in life. So I'm not going to speak for too much longer because I'm like mincing up my words today. I want to get on and let's bring Blaine onto the show. Welcome him with a huge big welcome. You guys are live right now. You guys know that you can type in welcome Blaine to the Unlocked Show, and let's hear what he's got to say. Welcome to the show, Blaine. Great to have you here.
Tracy, thank you so much for having me on today. I hope that, and I think we will, unlock some things that help people with their business, with their family, with their lives. And I just want to first start off by saying thank you to you for putting this show together. I mean, I know these things are not easy. They take work, but you're putting them together in a very professional way. And I would say that you have what I call the results ripple. So these kinds of shows are actually going to touch those lives not yet born. Somebody is not even born yet, and they're going to hear this show 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now. Maybe they're on the moon, maybe they live on Mars, whatever, but they're going to get value from these shows. So thank you for taking the time to put it together, and I think we're going to have some good value today.
Oh, you're most welcome. And thank you very much for recognizing that. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because you're absolutely right. Shows and creating content or sharing your knowledge as we do actually does create that ripple effect. It does enable people to, listen and hear some of the success secrets to life, business, family, etc., for many, many years to come. Now, I've recently been listening to an amazing TED talk that you did too. So I want to really unpackage some of that because I think, encapsulated within that TED talk was some really great techniques and, tools that you actually use in your everyday life. But I want to go back to this because as I was listening to that, I realized that, as entrepreneurs or as business owners or even as just humans, there are points within our life that are almost those pivotal moments that make us make decisions that actually bring us to where we are today. And I know that you've had a number of those throughout your life. So can you just kind of, I suppose, just maybe think of 2 or 3 of those instances where it's been like, gosh, that was a pivotal moment of my life, and that's actually brought me to be doing what I'm doing today.
Yeah, Tracy, absolutely. And I call those kind of moments of dawning comprehension, right? It's that pivotal moment, it's that big aha moment. And for me, the first one, I'll share 2 of them. The first one actually happened in college. And so I went to Purdue University, which is in Indiana. And I saw this little ad. And one of the things I've always been, which has served me well, is I've always been a seeker. Like I've always looked for knowledge. How do I get better? What can I do to self-develop myself? And I was always looking for knowledge. And I saw this little ad for an audio cassette about a book called Think and Grow Rich. So I sent away for this audio cassette. It came in the mail, and it was read by Earl Nightingale, who ended up later being a mentor of mine through audio programs. But anyway, he kind of did this recap of this book, Think and Grow Rich. I ended up buying the book, and I ended up reading the book in college. And what it did for me is it made me realize, and later I created an acronym called What You Think About, You Bring About, but it made me realize that, you could take your thoughts, your strongest desires, and there was kind of a systematic way to bring those into reality. And actually, I still have that book. It was so important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I still have this paperback book that I read in the 80s, not to date myself too much, but I read this book in the 80s, and I had some success with it. I met my wife at college. We've been married 30 years now, so the book helped me there. But this idea, that what you think about, you bring about. So it's not only controlling your thoughts, but then it's also controlling the actions that those thoughts bring you to. And so after I read the book, I don't know, 15, 16 times, I had enough success that I bought this book, which is the original, one of the original 5,000 copies. And so when I opened up, the weird thing is when I opened up the very first page of this book, it said, "What do you want most?" And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. I never read that. So I went back to my paperback, which is the book most people read, and it wasn't in there. And there were these two instructional pages, right? And again, this kind of became a moment of dawning comprehension. But he gave two instructions in those pages, and then I realized, wait a second, the book's different. So the original book had a lot of shouting, where he's typing in all caps. It also, I noticed that there were some passages missing, some new passages that I had never read before. But in any case, I followed those instructions. And at the time, my goal, the thing I was trying to bring about, I call it the bring about statement, was I wanted my business to be worth $1 million. I wanted to own $1 million business. And at the time, it was worth about 300,000. I thought, well, it's going to take me about 5 years. Well, it only took me 5 months because I applied those two instructional pages, and then I went about and made that happen, and kind of never looked back from that time. And we could unpack those pages, but basically the first page said, what do you want most? Like, get crystal clear, radical clarity on what it is you want, very, very specifically, number one. But number two was you had to read the book in a certain way with other people to tap into kind of the power of what I call that third mind. Like, if you could come up with 10 ideas and I come up with 10 ideas, if we come together and blend those ideas, we'll come up with 30, 40, or 50 ideas. Sometimes it's called the power of the mastermind. But that power, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 3, 4, or 5, right? So I learned that, early on, and that was kind of a defining moment and how you read the book and you had to do with other people. And so when I did that, the magic really kind of unfolded from that. So that's dawning comprehension number one. Number two kind of led me to become this, America's only chief results officer. But what happened for me was I had a technical job in technical sales. My degree is in computer science. And I came home from a business trip, and my son, Bo, he was only 1 year old at the time. He gave me the cold shoulder. I'm like, hey, Beth, what's going on with Bo here? And she's like, well, you were gone so long, he kind of forgot who you were. And I was like, wait, what? And that night, it really hit me in my heart. And I realized when I was a kid, my parents both worked, and I came home to an empty home. And actually, the year before, my dad actually passed away. I talk about this in my TED Talk. My dad passed away on the day my son was born, which was kind of painful. Luckily, I talked to him before he died that day. But anyway, at that night, I made what people call a clarifying decision, that I was going to work from home no matter what. And it took me a year. I started 2 different companies. It took me a year. But a year later, I broke free from the job, and that was 27 years ago. So for 27 years, I've been this kind of work from home dad person. Now the kids are out of the nest. But what it did for me is it gave me the time to do the deep dive into self-fluence or self-influence. So I started a company called Self-Fluence, the art and science of influencing yourself. And it's kind of like the power you already have to influence yourself. And so I had the free time now owning these businesses that had no daily operations to really dive into that. And that's when I started helping people. I started helping some mastermind groups. They called me the chief results officer because I was helping them kind of get results on a weekly basis. And that term was, I thought, wow, that's a cool term. And then I went to the U.S. Patent Office and nobody had registered it. So I registered and got the little R on it. And so that's how I kind of became the chief results officer. But it was Think and Grow Rich, this Waiteba concept, what you think about, you bring about. And then it was kind of my son and the cold shoulder kind of pushing me, into, getting free from a 9-to-5 job. And then that kind of made all the difference for me in the last, couple of decades.
It's interesting because we were sort of talking about this a little bit earlier before Blaine actually jumped on and we went live. And I was saying, gosh, Think and Grow Rich. He said to me, have you read that book? And I said, yes, I have actually read Think and Grow Rich. And funnily enough, for me, that was the book that actually was one of those critical moments in my life too. It was like, I remember, that Christmas where it was sort of making some really fundamental decisions about what direction I'd be going in, read the book, and then, the rest is history. Makes you really think about what it is that you want in your life and gives you a bit of a kick up the bum, I'm going to say, to actually start making some decisions. So, I'm a huge, big fan of that book too. Now, in terms of, obviously, after 27 years of being self-employed and running your own business and being able to condense that dream of, I want to bring about a multi-million-dollar business, but it's probably likely that I'm going to get that in 5 years, but being able to condense that down into 5 months and 5 years, like what are some of the fundamental things that you did? And I'm sure, this concept of the 30-minute hour really played itself into how you got those results so quickly. So let's unpackage or unlock maybe some of the secrets that you applied that allowed you to take what most people would do in 5 years and really condense that down to that 5-month period.
Yeah. So great point. And I'm glad that the Think and Grow Rich, played a role in your life. So let's talk about this concept of the 30-minute hour. So that is, how do you get an hour's worth of stuff done in just 30 minutes? How do you compress time, right? Now, I told you a moment ago about Selfluence, the kind of the training company I have, and everything that we teach, we call ourselves Powered by Selfluence, is something that you already know how to do. There's nothing new to learn, right? So it's, tapping into the power that you already have to influence yourself. So you already know how to do it. You already know how to have 30-minute hours. You've done it before. So we're going to unlock all that. But before I do, it's so powerful that I want to make sure, and I want to talk about the reward side of it first. And I want to get a little promise from people that they're not just going to use that time to do more work, which is what I typically as a type A person would do. So what I want to do is I just want to ask you this question. I'll answer it too. Is that, let's say I'm going to show you how to have a 30-minute hours. And let's say you put 4 of those together. So in 4 hours time, you got 4 hours worth of stuff done in just 2 hours. And that leaves you 2 hours of guilt-free time to do whatever you want to do. And let's say you could do a little extra work if you want, but let's say you're not going to do work. How would you reward yourself in those 2 hours? Now, for me, I like the Peloton bike, which I have, so I might take a long Peloton bike ride. I like to get outside and hike, so I could take a hike. I feel like I like to reach out to old friends and connect. And then I do like a little afternoon nap from time to time. So I would probably do a combination of those things. But Tracy, what about you? If you had 2 guilt-free hours of free time, what would you do?
Well, the stuff that I particularly enjoy doing, I'm a real DIYer. So I love like making things. So whether it be, cooking or baking or, using my hands to be a bit creative. So whether it's crafting something or recently my husband and I brought a caravan that we're renovating. So I'd spend my time doing that sort of stuff because, I just love being able to use the creative side of my brain to create something and then be able to stand back and go, oh, look what I just did. I
Right.
created that. I did that. So that's probably how I would spend, and family is extremely important to me. So it might be picking up my grandchildren and taking them to the park or going swimming or something like that. But those are the sorts of things that I would tend to do. And I do when I have, my spare time on the weekends and what have you.
Excellent. All right. So that's good stuff. So now those are the things that you want to kind of pull back more of that into your life as you discover how to have these 30-minute hours. So let's talk about the 30-minute hour. Now, there is, because I said you already know how to do it, there is a day. Now, for some people, it's more than once a year, but there's a day where people are 3 to 10 times more productive than their average day. 3 to 10 times. That's 3x to 10x. Now we're only looking for 2x. We're only looking to get 60 minutes worth of stuff done in 30 minutes. We're looking for 2x. But on this specific day, people get 3 to 10 times, 3x to 10x more done than their normal day. So Tracy, do you know what day of the year that is?
Enlighten me. What day
So
would
you're
that
not even
be?
going to try to guess. I love that.
I,
Okay,
I, I,
so
I would, I would say my question is, well, I'm intrigued to hear if there is a particular day, and then I'm thinking, is that the same for men and women? Like this
yes.
day that you speak of, is it the same for both men and women?
It is. It actually
Mm,
is. And so once I say it, you're going to have that moment of dawning comprehension, which I love. Okay, so the day for people where they get 3 to 10 times as much more stuff done than their average day is the day before vacation. So let that thing
mhm,
sink in a little bit. The
mhm,
day before vacation.
mhm,
So the day before vacation, people get 3 to 10 times more stuff done than their normal day, right? And so I came up with a
mhm.
little acronym to unpack this so that you could have as many 30-minute hours as possible. And so the acronym I came up with is something easy to remember because it's PDF. Now, PDF, everyone knows, like I say, hey, Tracy, go print out the PDF, or I'm going to email you the PDF. And so, actually, as a little side trivia, do you know what PDF stands for when you're sending people the PDF to print out?
Oh, document format.
Ooh,
Yeah,
very good. That's right. The D is
I do
document
know it, but I
format.
just cannot remember the printable document format or something like that.
Okay, so that is the closest anyone has ever come to getting that right in all the interviews and podcasts that I've done. So well done for you. So it's
Oh, thank you.
portable document
That's it.
format. Portable doc,
Thank
and
you.
basically that makes sense. It's something that's portable. Any
Mhm,
computer can print it out. But in our case, what PDF is an acronym for plan, delegate, focus. And so what I want people to
mm,
remember is think 30-minute hour, think day before vacation, and then think PDF. And I have a little card in my office, kind of it says day before vacation mode, because I want to remember this all the time. So let's talk about the P, planning. So what happens is the day before vacation, people don't leave that to chance. They do mega planning. They plan that day out more so than other days. And you've heard people say 1 minute of planning will save you 10 minutes of execution. So you really want to plan your day. Now, the day before vacation, people on average wake up 30 to 60 minutes earlier than their normal day. So one way to have a 30-minute hour immediately is just wake up 30 minutes earlier because that's what you're doing on the
mhm,
day before vacation. The other thing is that you have a very clear vision for the day. These are the things I need to get done, and you really kind of stay on track the whole day. And the other great thing is that you have not only a clear vision, but you actually, on that day, you kind of embody and use the 80-20 rule more so than you do on other days. So I ask people, the 80-20 rule, which says, 20% of what you do produces 80% of your results, right? But then also 80% of what you do only produces 20% of your results. And on that day before vacation, you're focused on the 20 and you're kind of ousting that 80 that's very unproductive. So it's through planning that you can begin to have some 30-minute hours. The second, so that's the P. The D stands for delegate. So what happens on the day before vacation, you delegate a lot more, and that can create 30-minute hours. So, you're thinking, I like to say, think who before do. So think who before do, meaning you think who could do this before you go do it. And so my wife, she works from home as well with me. And in the morning, she'll be like, okay, anything I can do to help you? And I'm like, oh, wow, if you could run these errands and you do this and you do that, you just gave me 30-minute hours right there, right? So she's taking stuff off my plate and I'm delegating that out. So on that day before vacation, with the limited time that you have and limited resources, you're delegating a lot of stuff. But the most important part is the F, which is the focus. And you have this very fierce focus. And actually, you use the most powerful word to have more 30-minute hours than any other day. Is a powerful word that you use more often on the day before vacation. It's only 2 letters, and it's NO. Right? You say no, 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 no. I'm on my plan. I'm going out of town. I can't do that. I can't do that. And you say no. You say no to other people. You say no to the shiny objects. You say no to the distractions. You say no, 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 no all day long. And if you'll add a little bit more back into your normal day, that word no, it can be super powerful. The other thing is, think about the things that don't happen the day before vacation. No chit chat, no getting lost in the internet, no chasing the shiny objects, right? You're really kind of distraction free on that day. And you're not crafting long responses to things. It's much shorter. You say no a lot and you stay on schedule and you tend to use timers more so on the day before vacation. And I instantly create 30-minute hours just by having that day before vacation attitude. Like, for example, someone say, can we meet, can we meet for an hour? And I immediately say, can we do it in 30 minutes? And almost every single time they say yes. And they say, could we meet for 30 minutes? I say, could we do it in 15 minutes or 20 minutes? Yes, we could. So I'm always looking to kind of shave that stuff down and compress the time down. So I'm staying on schedule and I'm using timers for my meetings. I'm using timers for myself. And one of the big aspects when you study that day before vacation is that people are using tasking at an all-time high level. What I mean by that, there's 3 types of tasking they're using. They're using single tasking, multitasking, and batch tasking. Now, single tasking, that is where you have something that you have to give all your concentration to and kind of like only you can do. Like, let's say today, I'm writing an article today, right? And only I can write the article. I need to write the article. But what happens is I create the 30-minute hour by saying, okay, I'm going to work. Let's say I wanted to work an hour on the article, but I'm only going to work 30 minutes on the article. But I can get an hour's worth of article work done if I single task, meaning my phone's in airplane mode. I shut down all the other windows. I shut my door. Nobody can get in. Nobody knows where I am. The outside world knows nothing of me during that 30 minutes. And I have this fierce focus. You will get an hour's worth of stuff done in 30 minutes with that single-mindedness, distraction-free focus. Super, super powerful. Now, multitasking, you also do multitasking on the day before vacation. Sometimes it gets a bad rap, but multitasking is where you can do 2 things at the same time without sacrificing the quality of either one. Okay, so let's take some examples. Day before vacation, you go, okay, I've got a 30-minute ride to some place that you're going. You're not going to just listen to 80s music like I would on a normal day. No, I'm going to get 3 phone calls done, right? I'm going to layer things, multitask, do 2 things at once, drive to my location and also, make my phone calls. Or, you know what, today I want an hour's worth of exercise, but I want an hour's worth of family time. So I kind of taught my kids to play tennis and we would go out and play an hour's worth of tennis. And now I just got 2 hours worth of stuff done in 1 hour. So you're looking for where can you do 2 things at once? Or I want to get some exercise, but I got to hear Tracy's new podcast. So I do those 2 together. So wherever you can do 2 things without sacrificing the quality, that's the multitasking. And then the last one is batch tasking. And that's where you batch things together, right? So the day before vacation, if you have 3 errands to run, you don't run an errand, come back, no, you batch them all together. You go out, you find the shortest route, and you make that happen, right? Same thing with batching your phone calls. You have 5 calls to make. No, do them all in one time block. Computer work, do it all together. So you're minimizing the starting and stopping with the batching, and you're also batching things based on context, meaning like, My wife, who I mentioned, she works from home. Well, we could be interrupting each other all day long, but we don't. We have a shared note in our iPhones, and we put whatever we want to remind ourselves to talk with them about, with her about. I put it in that note, and then we typically have lunch together, and that's where we go over all that stuff. And it's so much more efficient than interrupting, each other, throughout the day. So again, that's that batch tasking. So single, multi, and batch tasking. There's technology you can use to also, have some 30-minute hours. For example, we never watch TV with commercials anymore. We listen to podcasts at 1.3 or maybe 1.5. I talk a little fast. Maybe you can't do 1.5, but you can use technology to have those 30-minute hours. And the last thing that I'll say about the 30-minute hour is the beauty of it is that the 30-minute hour releases the perfectionist inside of you. You see, that day before vacation, you can't be perfect. You got to get it done. Done is better than perfect. And that day before vacation attitude is like, let's get it done. It's not going to be perfect. If I delegate it, they're only going to do 70% as good as I am, but that's better than it not getting started at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it releases the perfectionist and allows you to get more done. And what does that do? Done is the engine of more. You got the good brain chemicals. You feel good about it. You're winning. And it's just a great spiral up. So that is a synopsis now. And the listeners should be ready to have some 30-minute hours. What do you think?
I love that. And I've jotted down, like, I may have missed some of these steps, but I've pretty much got like 8. I'm a big steps kind of person, like, all right, what are the things that we would need to do? Let make a list is all over Tracy. That's what I do. So I've got 8 things that I think is really important. And number 1 that I've got here is around the attitude. So a couple of things that come to mind as you were talking through this. And it's quite funny because it's like, you say the day before vacation, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. That moment of clarity of, yeah, absolutely. That's the day that people are the most productive. It's not when the moon is shining at such and such a, direction as such. But yeah, being that day, and it is very true. One of the things that you spoke about is that when we have that, when we know that we're going to go on vacation tomorrow and it's the day before, like, our attitude changes. Our attitude is, I've just got to get this stuff done. I see my list of things, or I see my pile of work that I need to get through, and I want to get this done. And there'll be a number of reasons why we sort of attack things or focus in that particular manner at that time. But let's say, you're wanting to adopt all of these things, and you're wanting to create the sense of that day before vacation every day. How does one do that? And I know you talk a lot about the reticular activating system and the way in which our brain works. How do you actually use that to bring forth the attitude of the day before a vacation every day?
Yeah. And so really what I do is I just, live each day like it was the day before vacation with the PDF, right? With the plan, delegate, and focus. So for me, the day before vacation starts for me kind of the night before. So I like to never let a day end without planning the next one. So I know what time my schedule's not all filled in, but I know, the night before, I know what time I need to get up and what I'm going to be doing. And what are those main things? What are those big things that need to get done that next day? So planning is really, key, I believe, for that. And then, I like to have that plan. So when I get up, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. And then I do time block myself, and I do have I have this time for my single tasking, right? I got my time for my multitasking, and I've got my time for my batch tasking. And I'm putting those things in, each and every day, and really kind of compressing time down. I also do like to have rewards, right? So like the day before vacation, you're going on vacation. That's a big reward. So I'll give myself rewards throughout the day. Maybe I'll go for that walk I talked about, or maybe I say, once I get this part done, then I get to ride the Peloton, right? So I'm kind of surfing the urge to want to do those things to help me, have those 30-minute hours. But really it comes down to those basic things of planning, delegating, and then having fierce focus. And probably the fierce focus is the most important part, because it's the distractions that are so devastating, to you. And I tell people, airplane mode, it's not just for the airplane. put your phone in airplane mode. And I do that often. One time I had this great day. I'm like, oh man, this is one of my most productive days ever. And I realized why. My phone was off most of the day.
Mm.
So what do you think happened when I turned my phone back on off of
Mm-hmm.
airplane mode?
Mm-hmm.
It blew
Ping,
up,
ping, ping,
right?
ping, ping, ping. Yeah.
Pop, pop, pop,
Yeah.
pop. It went crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it took me 45 minutes to triage all that stuff, but I got a whole day of productivity, out of it, right? So
Yeah.
it was well worth it. And when you're triaging that stuff, some stuff fixed itself. You didn't even have to worry about it. Other things, I had to jump in, but a lot of it was not any more heat of the moment type stuff, and it had all kind of calmed down. So anyway, that is, I think that fierce focus is the thing that can give you the most, and giving yourself some think time in there too, so that you have the time, and it's not just like you said earlier, go, 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 overwhelm, boom, 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 boom. And you're not realizing what is the 20% that does make 80% of the results. And a lot of people, to get rid of overwhelm, they'll do a mind dump, which I'm a big fan of. You get it all out of your head and you put it on paper, all the stuff all the things that are swimming around up there, and you're getting, burned out and overloaded and you can't remember it all. Great. Put it all on paper. But you can't stop there. You have to process the list. Otherwise, now you just have a big list. It's out of your head,
Yeah.
but it's on the paper, and you're just worried about it still, right? And so the
Mm-hmm.
processing of that list, I always say, give yourself, like if you say I got 15 minutes to mind dump, do 10 mind dump and then 5 to process the list, But the processing is where I put an N next to things that I could do now, or that are nano, that are small, something you do within minutes, right? And then I put an S by things that I need to schedule to do within the next week. Let's say it's urgent stuff. And then I put a D next to things I can delegate. But most things get an L, and an L stands for later. And that just, I have a big later list, but then I've processed it and I pulled out those 80-20 things that have to be done the next week. I've pulled those out of that list and I put them into
Yeah.
my schedule as a task. So they went from a thing on a list to a time block or a task that's now in my calendar. Then I sleep a lot better.
Yeah, and those are all fantastic tips and tools to enable us to have those, those 30-minute hours. And then who knows? I mean, if you do that on the regular, who's to say that you can't have, 3-day weeks or 4-day weeks and end up having, much longer, a vacation every week with your weekend being much longer. So the 8 things that I sort of pulled out of what you're talking about, and the first being that attitude of just really taking on board that day before attitude. And I know you even talk about, living a day ahead, getting yourself ahead. And I can see now how the things that you're talking about actually does put you on the front foot, so that you are the person that's in control of your life, rather than allowing the day to just control where you go and what you do. And then you end up sort of filling it up with a whole lot of things that are really totally unproductive. The second being something very, very simple. Like you said, wake up a little bit earlier, whether it's half an hour or an hour, earlier than you normally would. Then having that very clear vision. And it's interesting because, the thing that you talk about, what we think about, we bring about. And we might talk a little bit more about that, because I think that's extremely important in us being able to visualize or getting that clear vision of what we actually want in our life. And you mentioned right at the beginning when you opened up that book from Napoleon Hill, and it said, what do you want? What do you really want?
Right.
And many people go through life, right, not really taking the time to even think about what they really want in life. So therefore, again, we end up kind of meandering through life in the hope that we will get what we want. So having that very clear vision. Then the next being planning. So planning out and making sure that we're staying on top of things, and just adopting something very simple, like Blaine was saying, at the end of each day, plan out what the next day is going to look like, so you can sleep well at night, wake up the next morning and just, start getting stuck in. The use of a timer. Something was super simple, but just utilizing that so that that, hey, you're not spending more time on something than maybe you should. And I don't know, again, the human, we're kind of wired to do things competitively to do things quicker than we should. So if you set 60 minutes and you manage to get it done in 40, you can have a little bit of that celebratory moment. And then, being able to task, that concept of tasking, is it something singular, multitasking, or being able to batch? And then obviously, technology, make it your friend. Go find the things that are going to help you from a technological point of view, actually speed up what you do. And funnily enough, as you mentioned, I speak really fast, and I don't know if you'll be able to increase the speed on, what you talk about. Funny, I was listening to your TED talk at 1.5 times, so it's totally possible, and you can understand what you say. So just so you know,
Right.
and then lastly, number 8 for me was the concept of, when you adopt all of this, being able to release, just give yourself permission to let go of, I've got to be perfect. Done is the new perfect, right? It's done is better than perfect. So get whatever it is done. And I'm speaking now, some of you guys have been listening to the show for some time, and some of you I have spoken to, I have come across you in my day-to-day life, and I've heard some of you say to me that I'm just not ready. I want you to take this moment and the things that Blaine is talking about as your sign, as now is the time. Done is better than perfect. Just get it out there and get the thing done, and use some of the techniques that Blaine has spoken about today to help you move faster and get the momentum that you need to carry on, and make sure that you get, because I know you've got great stuff, you just got to get it out there. I want to sort of shift gears now, Blaine, and I want to talk about the concept of what you think about, you bring about. And I know you've got a little acronym that you say that goes with that. So let's share that, and let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think this is the one thing that is super important. And I'm reflecting, actually, as we talk, on something that I've been thinking about recently, which is actually not such a great thing. And I'm now realizing, well, two things. One is that it is so true, and I'm certainly realizing the power that I have in manifesting things. And I may share with you sort of the little thing that I'm going through right now. And I totally know I've brought it on because of a lot to do with what I've been thinking. But anyway, let's talk about this concept and what it means and how people can apply it. And I know you have a little task that you get people to do to get them to identify where they're at. So guys, I want you to listen up now, because Blaine probably wasn't prepared for this, but given I'm throwing him in the deep end here, he's going to have a little task for you to do. And I want you to, if you're listening, type into the chat and just answer the questions as he asks them of you, because it's really going to put you in the frame of mind that is going to make you think about what you think about. Right. So hope you're following me with this, Blaine.
Yes.
I'm going to refer to the TED talk, and I'll let you take it away from here.
Yeah. So there's this concept, and it goes all the way back to when I read Think and Grow Rich in college, and this concept of what you think about, you bring about. So it's kind of like the law of attraction with action. Now, this is not new. I mean, you can find it in the Bible. You can find it back in Greek philosophers, about know thyself. And, as a man thinketh, so is he. What a man thinks he becomes, Gandhi said, and so this concept that we become what we think about, right? What you think about, you bring about. And so the cool thing about this is that now, finally, science is kind of catching up. And we're realizing, well, why does this work? Why what we think about, we bring about? Why is this even happening? And the reason it's happening is that the brain science and neuroscience now, they can tell that in the back of the brain, there's a little piece of your brain called the reticular activating system, or the RAS. And what the RAS does, it's like the executive secretary of your mind, of your conscious mind. So your subconscious mind, always running, and there are probably more than 1,000 inputs into your brain right now, meaning like what you hear, smell, touch, your breathing, your blood pressure, your heart's pumping, your muscles are moving, all kinds of different things are happening. And your brain is running all that. But now if you had to know all those things and you had to control all those things in your conscious mind, you would go crazy. So what the reticular activating system does is it's the thing that looks over all those inputs and says, this is what I'm going to pass to the conscious mind. And I tell a story about my son, Bo, and his very first car that he bought with his own money was an Acura TL, and it was maroon in color. And so he told me that. And then for the next 2 or 3 weeks, I see this car all over the place, right? He was in California, I was in Arizona, but I see this car everywhere. One pulls up next to me, then I see another one down the street. What is going on? Did all these people come around me with these cars all of a sudden? No, they were always there, but my RAS was starting to show me that, right? The reticular activating system was showing me those things that I thought about. It's bringing that to the conscious mind, because chemically what's happening is the kind of the neurons that fire together wire together. So those things that you ardently think about, those are the things that you start to bring about. And I told the story about my business. And the way that my business went from $300,000 to $1 million in value so quickly was because I was programming my RAS every single day. I was reading a statement about wanting the $1 million business, building the $1 million business, and I was programming it, and I was sharing with other people. And then I was in a room and somebody mentioned, and it wasn't very even close to me, they mentioned something about needing to sell their business. And my RAS picked up on that. And I realized that, yes, this is how I could grow rapidly, was through acquisition. If I could do a merger, right? And it was too big for me. I had to bring a partner in, but anyway, it was through merger. That's how I grew the business so rapidly, was through merger. But it was my RAS that tipped me off to that, right? So what you think about, you bring about. And I talk about the mind is like, in the TED Talk, we talk about the mind kind of being like a garden, right? And if you plant nothing, then someone else could plant in your garden, but also you're going to get weeds, which then you got to pull out because they're bad, right? So you don't want to neglect the garden of your mind. And so I asked people then, I passed out little cards at my TEDx talk, and I had them write on the card, think about one thing that you want to bring about. Could be small, could be big, but what's something that you want to bring about, in your life? And then I had everybody, a lot of times in presentations, they don't say, get out your cell phone. But I told everybody, get out your cell phone, and I want you to take a picture of that card. And they did. And after they took a picture of the card, then I told them the story of the unlock screen, right? And so the story of the unlock screen is that a company put a little piece of software to see how many times you unlock your phone. And it's between 60 and 160 times a day you unlock your phone. So you're seeing that picture, whatever your unlock screen is, 60 to 160 times a day. So if you want to program your RAS, you take that thing, whatever it is that you want, and you put it on your unlock screen. And now consciously, you're going to see it. Consciously, in the first week or so, you're thinking about it. Oh, I want that. I got to do that. I want that. That's what I want. And then after a week or two, your subconscious mind still sees it. Now, I like to change my picture slightly every couple of weeks. And you can also, some people will put a little family thing in there, as well as the goal that they're working on, right? It can be any picture you want. I use a free app called canva.com, where you can actually give it the exact size and you could design any kind of picture you want for free. But this idea of programming your RAS so that every day, 100 times a day, that goal is coming back up in your mind. And I've had people where it's worked within just a few weeks on smaller things. And then I've had people that came back to me 2 years later, because I did that talk about 5 years ago, but they came back to me 2 years later and said, this one guy, Ron, said, Blaine, I wrote the screenplay. And I knew that was his lifetime goal, was to write a screenplay. And he put it on his phone. He says, I'm not taking it off till that happens. Another client was an attorney, and he's like, I want to get out of the consult room, where he wasn't doing the consults all day long. And then that That probably took him maybe a year and a half, but he did it. But it was that programming of the RAS. So realize what you think about, you bring about. So be real careful what you think about. And we could talk a little bit about that because a lot of times you get stuck with head trash and stuff. But let me stop there and just see what comments you have on that.
I love that concept of, because often people will say, well, you've got to sit down, you've got to meditate, you've got to try and visualize these things. But that one simple, a very simple but yet extremely effective, change or switch in our life, just simply by putting in the forefront of your mind, which you're going to be looking at, like you say, what 100 times a day as you unlock your phone. What a simple little task to do that really is going to help you. So to me, it's like, why wouldn't you do something as simple as that? Nothing, you're doing it anyway. You're unlocking your phone anyway. Let's help your subconscious mind really embed what it is that you want by just using something as simple as that. I mean, I know the next thing you sort of talk about is you get people to start to assess where they're at with their ability to be able to, understand what they think about and how they're bringing those about. And I know you kind of go, are you an amateur? Are you intermediate at this? Or you're actually an expert at it? So let's give everybody the opportunity to maybe assess where they're at right now. And then obviously we'll give them some ideas about what they can do, maybe to switch themselves if they're a novice at it. How do you become an expert at this?
Right. Yeah, no, good point. And so one of the things we talked about was, this we use the concept of a gardener, right? And so, we said, are you a novice, or intermediate or an expert at gardening, right? And so, I would be considered probably a novice. I don't do a lot of gardening and maybe don't even like gardening that much. But then the intermediate is someone that has planted some stuff. Maybe they're growing some stuff right now. And then the expert, that's somebody who's like, they've got it down. They have their own garden, they're growing stuff and they love it. And they're kind of, an expert at it. They could teach somebody else how to do it. And the same thing is true with the garden of your mind. And so you have to ask yourself, are you taking the time to plant things into the garden of your mind? So if you're a novice is someone who not only do they not plant it, but they neglect their mind. So meaning that they're not only not planting, but they neglect it to the point that other people's seeds blow into their garden and weeds grow. Weeds are kind of the bad side of your thoughts. And then also other people's seeds get in there. And so the novice is the person that is neglecting and not doing anything with it, right? The intermediate person, gardener of the mind, is somebody that knows they have the power to plant and they've actually planted some stuff. So they're doing some things right. And they're planting some of the seeds of the things they want. The intermediate also knows that the solution to pollution is dilution. And so they know that if they have a pity party or something bad is happening, or they watch the news and it's all negative, they know that for maybe 1 hour of negative, they're going to have to put in 2, 3, or 4 hours of positive, right? So they're going to know that they've got to keep pouring in the water. Once the seed's planted, you got to keep putting the water in. You got to make sure the sun shines there. If it's dark 24 hours a day, if it's dark in your mind for 24 hours and there's no sunlight at all, nothing's going to grow too well. So they know that, and they're doing some of that. And then the expert is that person that takes full control of the garden of the mind. Full control means you're very tightly bound against negative thoughts. They're still there, but they're really small. They're in the corner. You know how to, I call it hack the head trash, but you know how to hack your head trash and hack it fast. We could talk about some tips about that, but you're keeping yourself in a positive state. And now brain science has shown that, the positive mind, outperforms the negative, neutral, or stress mind, 2 to 10 to 1. Right. So that it's really working. So that expert takes control of that and is feeding that and is guarding that. The sun is shining most of the day. So they're keeping the positive stuff, coming in, and they're actually taking they're doing at least a minimum of a 30-minute mind meal every day, right? So people eat food, they eat 3 meals a day. Well, how many meals a day do you feed your mind? I like to take a 30-minute mind meal, which is something like Tracy's podcast streaming show here, right? Something like that, something good, something creative, something that's going to move me forward, something that's going to raise my frequency and my vibration up. I'm pouring that in, every single day. I'm taking a 30-minute mind meal. Everyone takes a physical, well, most people take a physical shower every day. I take a mind shower every day, right? So every day, I prefer a 10-minute mind shower, but if I don't have enough time, I'll take a 3-minute mind shower. But I have an app that I use, and I wash my mind. I'm making sure that I'm getting the bugs out of the dirt of my mind, so that they don't destroy the seeds and the crops and the things that are growing in this. So that's a little bit of an overview of the different gardeners of the mind.
Great. One of the questions I know that our viewers is going to have is, you mentioned an app, and given that one of the this number 7 on my list of activities to do was technology. Can I ask, what's that app?
Yeah, so for that app, for the mind shower, I use an app. Well, there's 4 different apps, but the one I'm using is called Headspace. So it's a meditation app, and you can do different timed breathing exercises, and it teaches you all about meditation. There's one that's like graphically, nicer and cooler, and the imagery is really good, and that's called Calm. Calm is the next one. Then there's one called, and those have free versions, but also paid versions. And then there's one that is free called Insight Timer. And so again, all these you can go to the .com, insighttimer.com, calm.com, or headspace.com, or look up the app. But that one has over 100,000 different meditation apps. And then the other one that I use, if you're Christian, there's one called Abide, and that is kind of a meditation app for Christians. So I like that one as well. But so I've got a wide range of apps, but the one I'm typically using is the Headspace for the mind shower.
Beautiful. Well, I'm glad. I thought maybe there might have been something that I'm not using. If I opened up my phone, I've got both of those apps. So I'm happy about that. So I know that given we're coming up to the top of the hour, and you and I had a bit of a chat about sort of timing for today, but there's so many things that I want to continue to unpackage with you, particularly around hacking the head trash and that sort of thing. And maybe that's something that we can discuss on another podcast, or podcast and show a little bit further down the track. So I'd love to have you back for that. But guys, I think today we have, Blaine has given you so many really actionable and simple tools and techniques that you can utilize to really get the edge and start being more productive with your time, which is also going to improve your situation, unlock the success, whether it be from a business, a family, or a life perspective. So I want to thank him for that. But before we wrap up for today, I want to ask you, if you were to distill, personal development down into just a single sentence, what would that be?
Well, I mean, I've got to go with my 7 simple words, right? What you think about, you bring about. I mean, for me, that was the distillation of everything I've learned. And that's the thing that I see is the most tragic, is that people don't realize their own power, right? Their own power of their mind, right? And a lot of people, they'll struggle with productivity, yet the day before vacation, they get 3 to 10 times as much stuff. You know how to do it. It's there. Just tap into it, right? Just tap into that power of your mind. And the other interesting thing about self-development and all this stuff, we talked a lot about winning. And what you really are doing is you're managing a brain chemical game is what's really happening. And that's why when you get these small wins, or you get things done and you're checking stuff off the list, it's not perfect, but it's done. You're getting squirts of dopamine and brain chemicals that encourage you to do more. And you have to realize that you're managing those on the flip side too, like while you don't have any energy, or you feel, you're got a negative attitude and all those things. That can happen as well, but so you're battling that back and forth. So win early, win often, but remember, what you think about, you bring about.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Well, there you go, guys. So let's just make sure that we're being, pro gardeners of our mind. And I think you guys will agree that we should have Blaine back at some other time on the Unlock show so that we can, delve further into this, because it's such an important piece of not just, success in business, but it's actually success in life and just our own well-being. So I really want to make sure that we continue to bring some really good value through these shows. And I'd love to have Blaine back. I did mention, and I will come back to you guys on this. I mentioned in today's show that there was something that I wanted to share with you guys in terms of something that's happened to me recently. So I want to let you know that we're not going to cover it on this show right now, but what I will do is I will cover it on my Facebook page. So if you want to know about that, you want to hear my own personal story, then head on over to Tracy M. Wilson on Facebook, and I'll be sure in the next week or so to be on there, do a live and actually share with you that story, because it is an absolute example of kind of, how we can manifest things in our own mind, and what we think about, we bring about. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to say thank you very much for an amazing show today, Blaine. I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation. Thank you, everybody, for being here. You guys know that we go live with the Unlock show every Wednesday and Friday at 10 a.m. So, of course, I'm going to be back with you guys again for another episode of the Unlock show, 10 a.m. this Friday, Brisbane, Australia time. So make sure that you pop that into your calendars. You can also head on over to tracymwilson.com if you want more information about what it is that I do. You want to start your own show, go there, check it out. I can help you with that. Or you want to listen to more of these show episodes, because in the Unlock show, we drop all sorts of stuff. We have experts here talking about how you can unlock the success with your family, your business, and your life, and in particular, how you can take your skills, your knowledge, and your expertise and turn them into a successful online business, and also become a best-selling author. So that being said, see you guys again on Friday. Thanks very much for being here. Look forward to a fantastic week ahead. And if you want to check out more of Blaine, or you want to listen to the TEDx talk that he gave that I really enjoyed, I would encourage you to head on over to www.blaine, BLAINE, TEDx.com. Go there, listen to Blaine's TEDx talk, because he explains more about the concepts that we've spoken about today. So I'll leave it at that and let you guys go and explore that a little bit more. All right, guys, thanks very much for being here. Thank you, Blaine, and we'll see you again sometime soon, hopefully. Bye for now, everyone.